Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today we have a host of Sinn U series watches. We U50, U1, U2 and UX. So yeah, very good selection of watches. Interesting to see what the differences are. Now before I start or get too far into it, I've got to thank you Ryan over at Francis and Gay of Coventry, as they gave me these two watches to review. That's why the straps are so long on there. Now really good Sinn dealer. Well, they haven't been a Sinn dealer for long, but a really good selection of Sinns. If you're in the Midlands area, you can afford to pop into Coventry, have a look at their stock. They've got some amazing watches to see, plus many other brands. If not, give them a call. I'm certain they can do you a deal and get a watch posted out to you. So first things first, let's zoom in on this. We have the iconic U1, came out 17 years ago and started the whole craze. We have its new kid brother. This is the U50. This came out only just coming on for 2 years ago and is in essence the U1 shrunken down a little bit. Not just in case width, we've gone from 44mm to 41mm, but thickness. This is only 11mm. That's sometimes what you consider to be a dress watch. This is 14.7, I believe it is. And you notice it on your wrist, plus the lug to lug is a lot bigger on this. Don't get me wrong, U1 is a great watch, no problem at all, but I personally prefer this. Now remember, both watches are available on the H-Link bracelet. There's a PVD one, and different colours are available to these straps, like I have white here. So I say you can also get the U1 in full black, U1 professional and SDR where you have a black bezel, which is all, well, fair and dandy, but this is their, true colours, I think anyway. So I prefer this. I find the movement has got a better power reserve in this movement. Both run the same accuracies. They're both Sellita SW units, this being a 200, that being a 300. So 4 hours extra power reserve, a much better, more solid feeling substantial bezel on the smaller watch. As you can hear, it's actually quite hard to turn, but there again, as I said before, you do not want a dive bezel which is loose, where if I turn the U1, this is one thing which kind of lets down a U1 because there's quite a bit of back play, but it works perfectly okay, fully functional, but I just personally prefer this one. So I find it's got a better bezel action, and it's got a movement with a greater power reserve, and I think the loom is slightly is definitely stronger on the U1, the U50 versus the U1. The one advantage the U1 does have is it has a kilometre water resistance versus half a kilometre on this one, 500 meters. So now let's go up a fraction. Well, not really a fraction. This is a big difference. We go to the U2. Now the U2 is the big brother to the U1 and is part of the EZM range. It actually is a big enough step that they put it in as the EZM5. I believe it's a 5 actually. The EZM5. So what we have here is, I say, just basically the similar, but with all the tech, what you get with Sinn, or what you expect to. This, apart from the tag-lamented bezel here, hasn't really got a heck of a lot of tech versus this. Now don't get me wrong, this is the black version, which means it's fully tag-lamented, which I'll go into, but also means it costs a lot more to have it tag-lamented. But the biggest differences are down to the movements. This one holds, as it's an old model now, this is 9 years old, this one, so it has the original ETA movement, but it now comes with the Sellita SW330. Now, you have a GMT complication. This is a straightforward 1,000 meter diver. When you look at this model here, you'll notice there is another hand. If I point to it, you'll probably see it better here. And that is a GMT hand, very subtly marked in. A lot of people don't even see that hand when they first see it, which is the beauty of this watch, that you don't see it. It means it hides nicely in there. So it does have a GMT complication. Now, the other bits of tech you get on this watch is, well, you can see the IR codes in there. You have a slightly dome crystal on this one, but also you notice this blue down there, and that corresponds to the, very hard to see, but it actually has AR just there. That's it, when you see it reflected. That is Sinn's dehumidifying system. So it has improved seals, it has inert gas inside it, and what I mean by that is all watches normally have oxygen inside, and oxygen naturally has moisture in it. If you were to put a ice cube on the U1 or the U50 and leave it on there for about 40 seconds and take it off, you would see condensation form on the underside of the crystal. This won't happen. It simply won't happen with this because it has inert gas inside it. And the third part of the AR is the little crystals down here. This has two of them in succession, being the size of what it is, and copper sulfite crystals, and they naturally absorb moisture. And it's a good early warning system to tell you if there is any moisture has actually got into your watch. There is actually a diagram on the Sinn forum, and it will show you the darker that gets, how much saturation has got into the watch. The other advantage of this is it has 2 kilometers of water resistant, but it comes at a cost, and the cost is, and I think it's 0.8 of a millimeter thicker than the U1. So the extra kilometer, I know, you always need 2,000 kilometers, one of those things. But the other advantage this also has, it has better oils inside the watch. This is guaranteed to still read good time all the way down to minus 45 degrees and up to 80 degrees C. And you'd think they probably test, 1 in every 10 watches sent out? No, they test all of them. They freeze the whole lot of them, which I think is truly very impressive. This is a bracelet for this one. So there you go. Now we take a side step. Don't get me wrong, before I leave this, I do have full reviews of all these watches. In fact, I might even update them. Then we go to something completely different. This is the Sinn UX. Now, as you can see, exactly the same case design really as the U1, albeit this has the crown up here, as this is the GSG9 model. You can buy it with a crown also at 4 o'clock. But the biggest difference is it has a quartz movement. But where, the 1 kilometer water resistance wasn't enough for this one, and you thought, yep, I'll go to the U2. Oh, drat, that only has 2 kilometers of water resistant. The case of this watch can take 12, yes, I did say 12 kilometers of water resistance, but, and there is a caveat to this, the movement itself can only withstand 5 kilometers. I know it's a bind. Next time you're thinking of snorkeling down in the Mariana Trench down to that depths, yeah, I know it's a bind, but there you go. So the movement will actually stop moving at 5 kilometers of water resistance, but it won't harm the case. The case can go down to 12 kilometers, which is simply insane considering it is actually quite, I'm not going to say a slim watch, that would be wrong, but it's not particularly that thick either. So just over 13 mil. So it's thinner than both the U1 and the U2. All the other dimensions are the same. And the other advantage this watch has, it has the best bezel of them all. But this is only a 60 click bezel. And it has a ball bearing underneath. That's why it's so buttery smooth. It is one of the best bezels I think Sinn have ever made, full stop. But the big crux with this is a lot of people won't like it because it is quartz and it's not a cheap watch. Let's talk about prices of all these watches. If I do a base price of each watch on a metal bracelet, not teglemented, but a standard one, this in euros on the U50 is 2,190 euros. the U50, the U1, €2,190, exactly the same. The UX, €2,190, exactly the same. When you start getting up to the U2, you've got to start paying for the tech. So basically, I believe this is €2,590. So it's a bit more expensive, but you were getting so much more watch. But as this is the all black one on the black bracelet, it works out, I believe, at €3,040. And at the minute, because of Brexit, I think everything is pretty well pounds to euros. So it's going to be about that price in pounds. So as you can see, all these watches are the same price. So quite an interesting one is, which would you buy? So interesting. Now, a couple of little highlights before I leave about the UX and why it's a little bit special. Now, if I hold, let's get the U. Now, if you see there, both watches are at the same angle or thereabouts. Have you noticed you can't really read the time on the U1? But look at the UX. Look at that weird, funky. You see how you can see the hand still? You can't see them on U1, can you? And that's because this watch is submerged in oil. Now, I've had people think this is a smartwatch because they've caught it from the side and gone, well, I simply can't. How does that work? And the fact is, the whole movement, everything is submerged in oil. And we have a diaphragm on the back. I still have plastic on there. And that diaphragm moves, allowing for the differences in temperature and pressure. And that's why it's a little bit special. Now, you might say, oh, that means there's a problem. I have to send it back to Sinn when I have to get an oil change. And yes, that is true. The last time I did it, it cost me about £220. I think I paid. And the battery lasted me, prior to that, 8 or 9 years or thereabouts. So, just as an idea, it's kind of food for thought. And also, this is a grab and go watch, as in its time is always set. You don't have to worry about it. So, out of interest, which would we go for? You have an amazing selection of classic Sinns here. I would say the one you see most popular has to be the U1. You see that a lot, and it is, there's more of these around, so you see a lot of them on used market at very good prices. The U50 is still a new watch, so you don't see so many of them around. The U2 is also quite, it's not a rare watch, but you don't see that many because it does cost the bit more than the others. But I kind of like that because it makes it a little bit more just different. You don't see so many of them around. And the UX is, you do see some of these around, to be fair, but I don't know, they're all very, they're all different but similar, if that makes any kind of sense. So at a distance they all look very similar, but which would you go for? And in what configuration? I say, this isn't a full in-depth review by any means, shape or form. This is just a very quick comparison of the watches. I'll put them on the wrist so you get an idea. My Sinn 556A. If you want to see the full reviews, then you can go to my channel and see them. Now, let's put these. Well, no, let's actually go U1, maybe. There we go. That's these together. And they are really quite cool. This is all the Sinns I find work within chronometer specifications. So they're only going to lose, I think it's like around about -4 +6, I think it is. But I find he's outperformed them anyway. My Sinn UX I find is good for less than 10 seconds a year. And U50, here we go. You can see it's a little bit smaller. I think it does look fantastic. Now, if I compare, this should be interesting. If I put the U2 and the the upstart of a new one. There you go, get an idea of those. You catch a lot more reflections on the U2 because the simple fact is it has a domed crystal. The reason I believe it has a domed crystal versus why it doesn't have a flat crystal is the stack of the hands on there. Because the rest of the watches are relatively simple freehand models, this, because of that extra GMT complication hand, means the hands sit at a little bit higher, and so Sinn had to put a double dome crystal in there to allow the space for the hands. So there you go. Anyway, I hope you like that little selection. Always good to see a few Sinns together, and let me know in the comments below which one you would go for. Okay, all the best, take care and stay safe out there, guys. Bye.